I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a greener world, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. Over the years that we've been creating episodes for Growing a Greener World, growing food has been a theme that's become more popular with every season. And it's no surprise because people want that connection between the freshest, healthiest food they can get. And as far as food production growth, the biggest area there is urban farming and gardening. The reason for that is that urban dwellers are seeing past all those conventional barriers that would have stopped most people in their path just a few years ago. Take Britta Riley, for example. A small one-window New York City apartment didn't stop her from finding and creating an innovative system to grow fresh salad greens to satisfy her year-round cravings.
I live in Brooklyn, New York. Lots of cement, lots of people, lots of snow, not a lot of farms. This is what I like to eat: fresh food, mostly vegetables. And this is where I get a lot of my food. I have no idea where most of it comes from, but I do know where some of my food comes from. In fact, it comes from my window. This is my window farm. It's a vertical hydroponic garden made out of water bottles, tubing, an air pump, and some hydroponic supplies. Most of this stuff I got out of the recycling bin at my apartment and at the local hardware store. Not only do I know where this food came from, I know exactly what nutrients feed the plants that I'm eating. And I grew the plants up from seed myself. The window farm works because an air pump generates a little bubble at the bottom of a tube submerged in the nutrient-rich water. The bubble carries a column of water on top of it, and it rises up through the tube and spurts out the top. Then the water trickles back down through all of these bottles.
She's no longer the only window farmer. In fact, since she launched the Window Farms project with some friends here in New York, people are building window farms and growing their own food in the heart of cities all around the world.
They've been downloading instructions that are available for free on windowfarms.org. After they build their systems, they join in a mass collaboration online. Together, we all identify issues with the window farm systems, propose solutions, and test techniques for how to best grow different kinds of plants.
Whereas NASA is researching how to grow vegetables on the space station, Britta and her online community are researching how to grow food in the unlikely conditions of city windows. She calls the process of ordinary people contributing small innovations to collectively solve environmental problems R&DIY, or research and develop it yourself. Through the insights of window farmers, the designs keep evolving.
Look at my first system. Wow, it was pretty janky, but it kind of worked. Then members of our online community improved stability and performance by screwing the bottles together and testing new pumps. They suggested using the more efficient air pump technique. They also solved the noise problem by making something like a gun silencer out of a vitamin bottle. Then window farmers in Finland added LED grow lights, and teams in Italy, Scandinavia, Hong Kong, and Spain are translating the design for their local materials and languages. With each improvement, it's easier for the next person who joins to build a window farm.
So now they have a multidisciplinary team of hackers, foodies, teachers, gardeners, all around the world, collaborating online to solve one of the biggest problems facing our environment: how to supply fresh local food to people in cities, but their solution works no matter where you live. The technique of growing hydroponically or without soil like Britta did is providing new opportunities to grow food in the most unlikely places, which is particularly important in an urban environment where the common trait is an overabundance of asphalt and concrete and a similar lack of green space and open land. But don't tell Matt Liotta that. He found a way to take his skills and raise urban farming to a whole new level. Seeing is believing, as Chef Nathan and I quickly found out.
Joe, I just don't see it. I mean, to be able to grow local, sustainable, delicate greens in the middle of nowhere, I think Matt's pulling our legs.
Said it was a shipping container. We did our research. This is supposed to be the place, and here are shipping containers.
Wild goose chase, brother. I don't think you're right.
Hold on. Found it!
Whoa.
Hydroponic growing methods have caught the attention of some pretty smart people over the years. From rocket scientists at NASA, experimenting with the idea of growing plants in space, to high-tech guys like Matt Liotta, intrigued with the idea of growing a lot of plants in very little space. So Matt, you're the brainchild behind this hydroponic growing system inside of a shipping container. I got to know how this all came about, because you're not even a farmer or grower by trade, are you?
No, I have a high-tech background in software. And after I had sold my last company in the telecom industry, I spent a lot of time cooking for my daughter. And as I went around to grocery stores and sort of looked at where the produce was coming from, I noticed a lot of it was coming from other countries.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like with all of the emphasis on quality and on where we're getting our food from, I was curious as to why more of it wasn't coming from right here. So I sort of researched into what it would take to become an organic farmer and provide local produce. So I sort of asked myself the question from a tech point of view, which is forget everything that there's known about farming and kind of start over and say, okay, if we want to have local produce, what problems do we have to solve to actually get there? And this is the result of the answers to those questions. Yeah, so when we looked at it, we said, okay, if we can grow in an urban area, what do we need to do? And the problem is, you know, there's no farmland in an urban area, so we needed to create our own environment for growing. And what would be the optimal conditions to grow? What do we need to control? Things like temperature, humidity, CO2, et cetera, et cetera. So we came up with a methodology to control all of those things, and we needed some way to enclose them. So I stumbled across a shipping container as a basic building block. It provided an enclosure that was very easy for us to maintain, and it's a very dense footprint that can be scaled by simply stacking one on top of another.
Now, anywhere there's room to store a container is all the space needed to grow the equivalent of a 1-acre lettuce farm every month from just 330 square feet. But what if you have no place to go but up? Well, rooftop farms and gardens are one of the fastest areas of growth in the urban environment. With all that newfound ground above the crowded ground below, warehouses, office buildings, factories, restaurants, even apartments can be that newfound ground for growing. Even better, there's also other important environmental benefits. New York City. It's considered the most densely populated city in America. And with over 8 million mouths to feed, it's no surprise that some people are looking for new ways to provide high-quality, locally grown produce. But what is a surprise, some people are looking to grow that food up on rooftops rather than open fields. But by utilizing this untapped resource, now the distance that food travels from farm to fork can be measured in city blocks rather than miles. Plus, the community gets to experience a working farm right in their own neighborhood. Large rooftop farms are considered a new concept for New York, but a unique twist on the urban agriculture model. At the forefront of this new model are 4 entrepreneurs who founded Brooklyn Grange Rooftop Farm, which is currently the largest commercial rooftop farm in America. Although they have Brooklyn in their name, their flagship farm sits atop an old auto parts factory in Queens and is 40,000 square feet in size, which is roughly an acre. Now, besides the obvious benefit that rooftop farms have for providing local food to the area, there are a lot of other benefits as well. And one of the biggest is environmental, like with stormwater management. All the water that falls on these rooftops, well, it all goes into the storm system. And those storm systems were designed decades ago, not really set up to handle the volume of water that we get from all the rooftops today. So to the extent that we can keep that water on the rooftop, we help that storm system, like by adding all of this great soil. It acts like a big giant sponge, and when you combine that with the uptake from the roots, you can keep a lot of that water right here. And in this case, that was over 1 million gallons of water retained on this roof alone just last year. And then you have the urban heat island effect. All of that heat coming off this rooftop, it could be unbearable because this is the middle of August, but really it's quite pleasant, mainly due to the fact that all of these plants on top are releasing moisture through a process called transpiration. And because it's cooler up here, it's cooler down below, and that means a lot of energy conservation. Fresh vegetables aren't the only thing being raised at Brooklyn Grange and other rooftop farms around the world. These days, raising chickens and even honeybees is almost as common. Across the country, urban beekeeper Corky Luster saw a similar opportunity to utilize urban backyards across Seattle to help grow his business. Corky's customers would offer their yards as a place to locate his hives. While the bees are making honey for Corky to later harvest and sell, the bees are pollinating and improving the surrounding gardens. The added bonus is at the end of the season, when the homeowners get a large bottle of the honey made from their own backyard. Yet perhaps the very best benefit of all is that hundreds of hives and millions of bees are being added each year to the surrounding ecosystem to help sustain the honeybees' declining populations. Our next enterprising urban entrepreneur felt the tug to leave her successful New York City career behind for the farming life in Brooklyn. But she hadn't really found what she wanted to do yet, nor did she have a clear picture of what the future would look like either. Yet one thing she did know, with over 800,000 private backyards in New York City, there had to be a lot of underutilized growing space and plenty of opportunity for Stacy Murphy. So Stacy founded and created BK Farmyards, a Brooklyn-based farming network providing locally grown, healthy, and affordable food to area residents. With a company motto of, "You have the land, we grow the produce," Stacy and her apprentices farm in small urban backyards while making that trip from farm to table a whole lot shorter.
I have a background in mechanical engineering and architecture. I was working in the city, working on high-end residential buildings, and going through the farmer's market every day on the way to work. And I got really enthralled with food again. I grew up growing food with my mom when I was a kid, and I was excited about how fresh everything tasted again and how beautiful everything was, and the connection to the farmer. And it was something that I had lost touch with. And so little by little, I stopped going to work on time, and I kept staying at the farmer's market more and more, talking to the farmers about their days. And one day I just stopped and I stayed at the farmer's market all day long, and I thought about what a new profession might look like. And it took a while to think through what that might be. I decided that I wanted to become an urban farmer. So I thought about an idea that it would be a decentralized urban farming network. So that what that means in layman's terms is that we would have a lot of farms spread across the city, lots of different farmers, provide lots of opportunities, and increase the amount of fresh food that people could have access to in the city. It would be a whole new distribution network in the city. So the tagline for BK Farmyards is, "You have the land, we grow the produce." And so essentially that's how we started the business, is going around asking people, "Hey, do you have a yard? Do you have some land? Can we farm it?" And that's essentially how we started to find land. In fact, that's how we found this property. I was standing at a farmer's market that's a couple blocks from here. It's a very small farmer's market. And I figured the people at farmer's markets are going to be interested in fresh food. So I was standing on the corner with a flyer about my business, and I was yelling at people, "Hey, do you have a yard?" And the looks on people's faces was pretty funny. They didn't know where I was going with it. And then when I followed with, "Can I farm it?" they were a little taken aback, like, what do you mean? And so it drew a lot of attention to what I was doing. People wanted to know how they could be a part of it and what it would mean to farm their backyard. And so there was a woman who took one of the flyers and posted it on the community blog. She's one of the community leaders in the neighborhood. And so I started getting phone calls all over the neighborhood from people saying, "I have a yard, do you want to farm it?" And one of them was this yard. And she actually called me when I was walking close to her street looking at a separate yard. And she was at work, but I just came right into her backyard when everybody was gone. And it was a gorgeous yard filled with weeds up to my forehead, which meant that it got a lot of sun and was perfect for growing.
I love walking through any organic garden, especially when it's in town. You know, that's really important no matter where it is. But here, everything looks so healthy. I see a little bit of cosmetic damage, but no big deal, right?
Yeah, so we believe that if there's some holes in the plants, then it's safe for the pests to eat, then it must be safe for us to eat, right?
Right.
And the people who come to buy the food are appreciative of that.
They get it?
They know that it's safe for their kids. So our methods here are really simple. Basically, if there's pests on the plant, we'll pull them off and kill them. Or if they're something that needs to be killed, we'll just squash it with our hands, throw it away.
Yeah, but being proactive is probably the most important thing. Catching it early,
Yes,
getting
yes.
ahead of the problem before it becomes big.
So we're super densely packed,
Yeah.
which means that pests can really multiply quickly on a site like this.
Right.
So we make sure we look every day for pests.
Yeah, well, that's really important. The other nice thing about an organic garden is that you can sort of graze as you go on pest control, right?
Exactly.
That's good. And then there are gardens for people who want to garden themselves but don't have a place to do so. Well, community gardens are the answer for that. Some of the earliest ones date back to World War I and II and the Victory Garden movement. But with today's urban sprawl and the desire to grow more food than ever before, and the demand for community gardens has risen right along with it. The Peterson Garden Project in Chicago is a successful community garden project with a twist. They have a mission that's based on some of the same philosophies used during the Victory Garden movement, when communities came together to build temporary gardens to teach citizens to grow some of the nation's food. Well, today, the Peterson Garden Project is doing the same thing, but with the goal of growing lifelong gardeners as well as organic produce. LaManda Joy is the woman who started the Peterson Garden Project just 3 short years ago. As a garden writer, LaManda was always looking for new ways to get people involved in growing their own food. After learning that her neighborhood was once a hub for the 1940s Victory Garden movement, LaManda was determined to recreate that era momentum today. With the help of many hardworking volunteers, that idea has transformed many empty lots into 9 organic community gardens, with over 3,000 people involved in growing food for themselves and others. Now, if everything goes according to plan, you end up with a garden like this. This is the Vedgewater Garden in the Edgewater neighborhood, not far off the lake in downtown Chicago. Now, there's not a lot of green space here except for what's coming out of these raised beds, and there are 180 of those, over 12,000 square feet. Now, what's neat about this is there's so much concrete here, even the beds are on top of it, and yet the plants are thriving. About 6 to 8 inches of soil, lots of sunlight, and a little water, and these plants are doing great. And even better than that, all the new gardeners. This garden didn't even exist not that long ago, but so many people are learning so many new things and building community all at the same time.
You know, our mission isn't to build long-term gardens, it's to build long-term gardeners. So we do, of course, build community gardens, but at the heart, Peterson Garden Project is about education. And we work with community gardens. And the really amazing thing is you can talk about the number of beds that we have, the number of volunteers, the number of gardeners, all these statistics. But the thing that you don't see is that 10% of a community garden is the garden and 90% is the community. And so the really amazing thing that's happened is we've taken these empty lots and people from the neighborhood have come together to create this sense of community, and they're learning together and their kids are playing together and they're creating memories together. And we have all sorts of events and music so people can be together. And when you look at just an empty space with trash and weeds and all that, and then you see what this can become because people want to do it. People want to be together. And the gardeners build these gardens. That's the really amazing thing about Peterson Garden Project.
There's no denying the rising importance to have access to locally grown or sourced produce. In fact, it has everything to do with where we shop, what we eat, and even how we cook. But one of the biggest challenges to urban living is sometimes having access to that type of food. Here at the Truly Living Well Center for Natural Urban Agriculture, they make that a little bit easier. And in Roanoke, Virginia, they've been providing access at the farmers market for over 130 years. If you're wondering what to have for dinner tonight and you're anywhere near the Roanoke area, you might want to consider the historic Roanoke City Market. Now, it's been named as one of those great American places by the Lyndhurst Foundation, along with the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. and New York City Central Park. Now, it's also the longest running open air market in Virginia Commonwealth's history, dating back to 1882. But it's changed a lot since then. But today you can find organically and locally grown fruits and vegetables and plants, along with arts and crafts from local artisans, adding to the diversity and the vibrancy of this great urban market. Tracy, you've been the market manager here for 3 years.
For 3 years, yes, correct.
Not a huge amount of time, but in that time, I'm curious to know whether you've seen some good growth and an increase in the vibe of what's going on down here in the market.
We've definitely seen growth. You know, we still have that great historical feel. You know, we've been here since the turn of the century.
Yep.
But right now, we have this influx of young professionals that are living and working downtown that love the farm-to-table experience and hanging out with the community.
And it's so important for a city like Roanoke and others, where you preserve that historical aspect to it, but at the same time, you're bringing in things like this to the market that people today that live in an urban setting want to have access to.
Absolutely. They want access to fresh local fruits and vegetables and have it in their own urban backyard. I mean, what's better than that?
Nothing. Finding ways to help strengthen the local food system should be an important endeavor for any city. Recently, the Roanoke Natural Foods Co-op was able to secure the purchase and lease of a 25-acre urban farm to help strengthen the local food infrastructure for the entire Roanoke Valley. Known as Heritage Point Urban Farm, the co-op endeavors to ensure this farmland remains farmland, and through urban farming, help build a thriving and sustainable local economy. Building thriving economies with local food as a central focus can do much to chart the course of success for any city, just as Roanoke is experiencing today. Center in the Square is a shining example of this city's progressive thinking. Designed by architects David Bandy and Nathan Harper, this multi-level green roof event venue and educational building offers spectacular views of downtown and the mountains of the Roanoke Valley. It boasts many of the latest sustainable green and energy harnessing technologies for both their operational effectiveness and educational aspects. As a result, it's earned a preliminary rating of Silver LEED certification for a historic renovation project. For example, rainwater is captured and used to irrigate the vegetated roof and wall features, while interior water consumption is reduced by 40% by the use of low flow and waterless fixtures. The use of vegetated roofing also cuts down on the urban heat island effect, and roof-mounted photovoltaic panels are being installed to provide electricity from a renewable source. Green buildings like this provide numerous opportunities for educational outreach. Here, students can come to the Science Museum to learn about energy and electrons, eco-friendly water collection systems, even study nature in the center's massive butterfly habitat. It's a perfect opportunity to couple responsible water and energy use with public education. We love telling those stories of people and places doing great things for the planet through gardening and farming and sustainable living. And if you like what you saw today, we have a lot more stories like that on our website that you can watch anytime. And if you want to dig deeper, we have show notes that go with every episode with a lot more information than that. The website address, it's the same as our show name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Joe Lample, and we'll see you back here next time for more Growing a Greener World. So one of the things I love about a community garden, there's so much, what's not to love, right? But just a second ago, one of the gardeners back there in the green shirt, homegrown tomatoes, she put in our hands. She doesn't know who we are. She didn't even know we're here to do a show. Her very special tomatoes, and they're beautiful, and I can't wait to eat them. Then you got a group of Boy Scouts coming in here to learn about gardening and do their homework. How cool is that? Gotta love a garden.